the I am your protector, which Bill wrote a great item for Morning Shots, about like it's like sounded like an abuser gaslighting their abused spouse. Like, no, I'm the only one who can protect you, and you won't even be thinking about this other stuff. And God forbid you think for yourself. And it's so gross.
Baby, they just don't understand us. They don't understand our love. Hello, everyone. This is JVL here with my best friends, Sarah Longwell and Tim Miller of the Bulwark. Guys, the time's just ticking off the clock. We're getting there very soon. We're, 6 weeks out?
People are already voting some places. It's already happening.
Early voting has begun some places. And this is our last show before the vice presidential debate in which millions of Americans will get to meet Tim Walz and J.D. Vance for the first time. Boy, I bet they're excited about that. So I guess, Tim, this debate will not matter at all, right?
I mean, yes, at the biggest possible level, it will not matter at all. Could it matter on the margin? Sure. I think that the VPs are a little more interesting this time, and it's kind of closer to the Palin debate. I mean, I remember, I don't know, where you guys were, but I remember there was like some excitement. The Palin debate, like I went to a debate watch party for the Palin VP debate in 2008 against Joe Biden. People were interested to learn about her. I think that who weren't just super political nerds. So I think there'll be a little bit of that this time. I think there's some interest in Tim Walz. Obviously, I think that like J.D. Vance's weirdness and creepiness is interesting to people. So I think that it will have a higher viewership than your median VP debate for that reason. I think that, as Sarah has very well put, so I won't take her thunder from her. JD has emphasized Trump's negatives in a lot of ways, and so he could continue to do that in ways that would be problematic. Trump is also 78 years old, would be 82 at the end of his next term, so the idea of JD Vance as a possible president is something to monitor here. And I think that there's a lot of lefty excitement for Tim. That's the thing that makes me the most worried, is I do think that there is a the expectations a little out of whack. I think there's I think that like on super online people like think Tim Walz is really great. Maybe he's really great. We don't know. We'll see. Actually, he himself has said that he is not a good debater. And he was saying that during the vetting, this was not, just sort of the thing you do before a debate where you try to lower expectations. He self-assessed himself as not very good. J.D. Vance, luckily, has negative charisma and is one of the most unappealing people I've ever encountered in my life. That said, he's not an idiot. Like, he's smart. He knows his stuff. He's been getting a lot of BP, doing interviews. So I worry a little bit about the expectations here, though we do have tomorrow's daily podcast guest, somebody who has very good words, and I'm about to tape an interview with him in a couple hours. And he's been prepping Tim Walz. Does he have the best
words?
He does. He has the best words, and he's been prepping Tim Walz. So that's something that I'm a little encouraged by.
Will you ask him if he remembers meeting me?
Yes. I will.
And I hope he doesn't.
Okay. We'll see. We'll find out.
Okay.
Do you want me to ask him?
Do you remember meeting this weirdo woman who looks uncannily like Sarah Longwell? Because I just want you to know that wasn't really her.
Yeah. If he says, I don't know what you're talking about, and you say, you were talking to somebody and she started to act deranged and just point to the corner saying, there's a guy. I see a guy. And maybe that'll jog his memory.
Okay. Would you like me to do that live on the podcast, or is that a green room talk?
That's a green room. Maybe okay. Just you could tell me don't have it in the show.
Right. Okay.
Thanks.
So that's my overview of the VP debate.
Sarah?
So Tim, I like how Tim was like, I'm not going to steal her thunder, and then he totally made my point.
I just made it in one sentence. I didn't expand upon it. I figured that you would have additional
follow-ups.
Yeah.
Follow-ups. So I will say I agree with much of what Tim said. I do think this thing about the interest being high in Walz, like because of the breakneck pace of the campaign, and also we've only seen Walz a couple times, like in a showcase environment. Like we saw more of Tim Walz when Tim Walz was auditioning to be the vice president than I think we have subsequently since him becoming the vice presidential candidate. And so, like, there's commercials he's running right now with him, like, fixing a carburetor or something, doing something with a car.
It's transmission.
Okay, well, whatever. Isn't this stuff all computers now? Do we still need this? But sure. Okay. Just settle down.
Not in real America.
Sure. No, I think that's fine. It's a little on the nose for him, but sure. I do think, like, okay, so we saw him at I was there at the convention the night he spoke, and he was excellent. He was excellent on his scripted speech. He was not great at that CNN interview that Dana Bash did with he and Kamala. Again, if we recall the staging of that, he was big and she was small, but he also didn't talk much. He was like looming over the thing, but said very little. And when he said it, it was so the whole thing like came off
kind of like
strange.
made me feel like when I had a bad I had a bad report card, I behaved poorly at school. You have the parent teacher conference.
Yeah.
You sit there and the teacher just talks to you, but your dad is sitting right there, kind of
That's
like
right.
looking at you, like, did you really not do your homework, son? Like there was a little
And
bit
the
of that
chair's too
vibe.
small for your dad, and he looks uncomfortable in the too small student chair, and he's enormous in a room filled normally with smaller children. Yeah. So, I am. So I don't know if you got either of you. So someone in my shop did pull up his debate from when he was running there in Minnesota, and it's not terrific. I gotta say, which is why he's sort of a self-described not great debater. And I think that JD Vance has like prep school overachiever vibes on things like this, where I do think that in a sort of high pressure, just like this is going to come down to performance. And, you know, we talked about the rule of if you turn off the TV, what does it look like? I suspect you get JD Vance smarmily and smugly putting on a pretty good, like, I have a total command of a lot of the policy things. I think maybe he tries not to lean so hard into the anti-woman stuff. He probably gets asked about it and is able to maybe, like, with a lot of people watching, do a little damage control for themselves, maybe on Springfield too. So
I love females,
Yeah.
especially when they are ovulating.
well, so
Right.
here's the thing, but this is what I mean is this idea of him being robotic and not, that is like, he's not good in a donut shop. He's not good in the things where Walz is really good. Like, I'm going to talk to a regular person out. We're going to talk about regular things like donuts, and it's going to look like a normal human interaction. Walz good at that. JD Vance bad at that. Debate, artificial environment, cameras, lights, pressure. This is like JD Vance a little bit built for this, and Walz being like, I don't like this environment. This does not feel good to me. That is my concern.
Tell me about the Walz debate, because I haven't watched it.
Well, like I said, somebody else in my office watched it.
Okay.
I didn't. I was only subjected to a kind of look at this, and it's just like it's not his comfort zone, and he's not like a deliverer of polished answers on policy.
Yeah.
Like, he wants to talk to people like people. And in these debate performances, right, people are a little bit like, everybody in these, including the vice presidents, has to sort of clear the presidential bar. Like, you just like, could I see this person as president? And like, every president is a little bit of a balance between, do I want to get a beer with this person and do I trust them to lead the free world? And like, that's why it's a tough thing. It's a tough little combo to pull off. And what you don't want, I think you could end up in this being like, I'd like to get a beer with Walz, but like probably want JD Vance running things. Like, I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I'm like articulating my fear based on what I've seen of the two of them, which is much less of Walz and much more of Vance. And to Tim's point, I believe in reps. Like, I think that I've seen us, like, we've watched ourselves improve in these environments by doing it, getting comfortable with like talking for yourself and with saying out loud when you don't know the answer to something. And like, you know, just getting comfortable having to talk in front of people is a really important thing. And they've been, you know, they're just low on reps. Both
I
of them.
want to say one thing on reps before you get in JVL, because it bears mentioning. What Kamala did in the first debate is truly astounding. I just like, and I mean, like really, she received a lot of praise because there was a lot to discuss after the debate on substance and the style, and that Trump didn't look at her, and I'm trolling Trump and Lindsey Graham, right? But like, if you just take all of that out of it, she had not had that many reps, and she had clearly practiced, and she was a comfortable performer. And I say that performer in a complimentary way, not like a fake performer, but like she had enough reps in the mirror or where you tape it and show it back to her, where the facial reactions and how she was looking and how she was carrying herself, and they took it very seriously. And major kudos to her, because that is tough. Like that is literally, that is, I think, as the JVL metaphor was the Robert Horry. Like you're coming off the bench in the NBA Finals and you got to hit a three. It's tough to come in.
And this is where her practice as a prosecutor, I suspect, really helped her. Not because she has a prosecutorial tone, blah blah, but like she knew what it meant to prep for a big thing where you have to deliver things in a compelling way, where you like the jury's going to be watching your face. Like she did have practice at the type of things she was doing that I think made her be like, okay, if I prep hard for this, I know how to do this.
Yeah. So maybe I guess my point is maybe the team that helped her with that can help Tim Walz. I think it's a fair thing to be nervous about that, though, is that Kamala just might be an MVP primetime player at this sort of thing, and it's like I'm a decent coach at media. I do pretty decent media training, and you can improve somebody a little bit, but like you can only improve them so much, right? Like the performer has to be able to perform as well, and so I think that's a fair thing to be a little nervous about with Tim Walz, since he hasn't been out there that much.
So let me ask you guys about this. We could sit here and name half a dozen things that JD Vance has done over the last 3 weeks in public.
At least
there's the donut shop, whatever makes sense. There's the standing in front of the eggs that are on, selling for $2.99 and talking about how eggs are $4, and there's just a half a dozen things we just
all the morning shows, like the Nelk Boy thing where he's talking, where he makes the weird comment about how he's told his kid to shut up, but it was also he's kind of broing, right?
Saying he doesn't believe Mark Robinson, but he doesn't not believe Mark Robinson, right? I mean, just I feel like we know everything, every thought that has gone into JD Vance's head over the last 6 weeks. And Walz, I feel, so we were talking about this on our internal Slack yesterday. I said it's like I haven't seen Walz since the convention. I was like, where did the guy go? And our colleague Hannah pointed out, he's been out doing events every single day. Not every day. You just go to the tape, right? Like he's out there getting absolutely no coverage. What is that? Is it just JD Vance is willing to go out there and set himself on fire every day, and so that's what gets covered, and Walz is doing normal politician-y stuff? And so, and we no longer have local papers anymore. Local newspapers don't exist. And so it just goes into the ether. What do you guys make of it? And is it a problem or is it not a problem? Is the answer that it's not really about Walz anyway? Vance is doing the hatchet man job that he has to do, but you're not. On the Harris side, they don't need to drive up Trump's negatives anymore. His negatives are already in the red line. They're not going to go anymore. And the focus should all be on her anyway. So use Walz to help get voter registration and fundraising, and don't worry that he's not showing up in the media clips every night.
I don't think that at all, and I'll tell you why.
Tell me.
So if you had to the one thing that is shaping up to be the story of this election is going to be the gender polarization, right? That we're getting into sort of a girls versus boys situation, and the reason that JD Vance does all these bro-y podcasts, whatever, is because they're trying to run up the numbers with men. And they've basically just decided, I think, screw women. I mean, and I don't mean that but they're just we're not going to, clearly somebody had gone to Trump, probably Kellyanne Conway, and showed him the numbers with women. And Trump's response to him seeing just how catastrophically bad he's doing with women was to bleed out in all caps, what about women? You will never think about abortion because I will take such good care of you and you will be happy and healthy and wise. It's just banana stuff. And then he got up and did it at an event, the I Am Your Protector, which Bill wrote a great item for Morning Shots, about it's sounded like an abuser gaslighting their abused spouse. Like, no, I'm the only one who can protect you, and you won't even be thinking about this other stuff. And God forbid you think for yourself. And it's so gross.
Baby, they just don't understand us. They don't understand our love.
That's right.
Right? Yeah.
And so Trump is like just cratering with women. But Kamala's not doing well with men. And I think that the point of Walz is like, he's supposed to be, it's the reason they have him fixing the car. But like, my fear with Walz, and I think Walz is fine. My fear with him was always that he ends up being sort of a liberal's version of what they think Republicans will respond well to, right? That they'll like him. I'm not sure if this is true or not, because I've seen a couple things that he's done that I thought were really compelling. There's this interview he does with like a influencer or he starts talking about home maintenance being like gutters being the great unsung thing. That was gold, and it has not been replicated. And so like, I think the question is like, why isn't there more coverage? Why isn't he moving? He should be doing like more.
Should he be on Joe Rogan's show?
Yeah. I mean, I think they've got to go to where people are, especially what I guess I would call like people who are secular people. Like, and by secular, I mean not obsessed with politics, right? They're casual observers of politics. They get their news, such as it is, from these influencers. And like, I feel like that's Walz's assignment in many ways in this election. And like, so far it's not really happening in my
for the Barstool podcast.
Yeah. So I want to just level set on this, like just about what is actually happening, because you were bringing this up at the beginning. JD Vance is not getting more attention because JD Vance is like saying dumber things or some media imbalance, or like JD Vance is putting himself in environments where he makes news. Like he's doing hostile interviews, he's doing offbeat interviews, he's taking questions from the media at events like that. What you see, I don't not believe Mark Robinson. Like that was after he gave a speech. He takes questions. Like you see him up on the podium, and Tim Walz is not doing that, right? He is doing events. I don't know about every day, but he is doing events where they're just speeches, and then he leaves. And so that is happening. So then the next question is that a good strategy or a bad strategy, right? And there's two ways to look at it. Like to the JVL point of maybe the highest and best use of him is doing friendly events, voter registration, turnout, fundraising. That's a theory. Like that's not a crazy theory, right? I mean, because you can look at the JD Vance thing and say, what is doing all these interviews got him? Like it's just reinforced all his negatives. Tim Walz's positives are much higher than JD Vance's. And so I think that's a defensible strategic position. I just think that it's the gap is too wide for me, for my taste. You know what I mean? Like I'd like to see a little bit more from Walz, exactly in the area that Sarah's talking about, doing sports podcasts, doing viral things with influencers. I don't think he needs to like go on Fox and do Brett Baer or do a big sit down with 60 Minutes or whatever. But and I think that he's obviously prepping. The very place we started on this was he's self-conscious, I think, about his own debating ability. So they're probably spending a lot of time on that. But still, you know, I've been in marathon debate prep sessions. You can really only do 4 hours in a day, really. Like you can do 2 hours and have lunch and do 2 hours. Like you're not doing 10 hours of debate prep a day. Like eventually the person gets
diminishing
tired.
Returns. Yeah,
totally. So there's still time in the day to do this stuff that we're talking about. And I would like to see him do more. You're seeing a little bit of this with Kamala. She's doing the podcast with Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson. I'm forgetting the name of the podcast. These are two of the We Believe Warriors, which is a basketball podcast, which I'm for, though I think that audience is probably mostly Democrats. I mean, the two hosts are two black guys, so you know, you just kind of know where you're getting with. So like that's kind of dipping your toe into the sports bro world, but I would like to see Tim Walz like put a full foot in and do some more of this stuff, some more stuff that's doesn't code partisan. It can be whatever. I'm more familiar with the sports podcast, but I'm sure there are car talk podcasts, like, you know, and stuff like that he could go do,
or like
too.
Football. Isn't it football season?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I could list you the sports ones I think he should do, but like there should be other stuff.
Isn't it football season?
Isn't it football season? It is football season. So yeah, so that I think that the gap feels a little too wide for me, especially because Walz had momentum. There's also a momentum and trajectory of this. It's almost like, why stop? We were wrong about at some level about Walz. Like he's been better than I think all of us expected. His fave on faves are good. Use it. use it. Let's, keep riding the horse a little more, I think.
How about Harris herself? Is she doing enough? This is my bias is I want her to make news every single day. And I want her to be the most important topic of conversation every single day, because I think that's how she maximizes her chances of victory. And so any day that goes by without a oh crap, look what the vice president did, feels to me like a missed opportunity. But maybe that's wrong. Maybe that's reductive.
I don't think it's wrong. I'm not sure whether or not it seems like maybe the team's got a little bit of Biden PTSD around how much they were concealing Biden. And look, there's a few things when we talk about reps, one of the things I just want to be clear about what I mean. There are only so many questions any politician's going to get asked, right? There is, and what you don't want is to get asked a first question for the first time at a debate. Right? If you go on everything, you will just realize very quickly, if you do media, you realize very quickly everyone's asking you the same 10 things over and over again. And you get good at answering them. You are able to sort of work through exactly what you think and then you get crisper as you go. And so I think that's really important. But here, the thing, when you say, is Kamala doing enough? I think neither of them are doing enough. And one of the reasons is, the more people see of Kamala Harris, nobody has seen a bigger spike in favorables in modern political history than
W
her.
after 9/11 was the last one.
That's it. So the more people see of her, the more they like her. And so if you're looking at that, you're going, see more, make people see more. And I think that she's doing this thing, she's going to go do this interview with Stephanie Ruhle.
She's doing the basketball podcast.
She's going to do the basketball podcast. But now everybody's Stephanie Ruhle interview, appointment television. And you raise the stakes of every interview. JD Vance is getting sort of these moments of virality and we criticize him. But a lot of other people are just hearing what he said straightforwardly without this. And he's getting a direct line to all of these people, and they need to do that too. Just constant talking to people, so people hear them because it's good. They like them more. And she's got to cross for people a threshold of presidential. They have sort of different assignments. People want to see her as presidential. So I think it's good to do the basketball podcast and everything, but those are a little light and fluffy. I think she's got to be serious. She can go on and talk competently about a range of issues over and over again. People kind of got to fall in love with Tim Walz. His point of Tim Walz there is for everyone to love him. And so I think he needs to go do more to get people to say, that guy's great. Man, what a team they make, and have him compliment the whole package.
Yeah, I mean, the polling in Pennsylvania is much too close for comfort. And I am all in favor, I guess, of saying I was wrong about Shapiro and the Walz pick. But on the other hand, if you're not really using Walz,
yeah, I'm not
and
saying
Pennsylvania winds up
sorry,
super
yeah,
close.
I'm not saying I'm wrong yet.
I was saying that we were wrong on our assessment of Walz.
I did. This is me. This is to Jay. I'm not speaking for you. You can stick to your guns on Shapiro. I've already written my mea culpa on that. And I thought, after the convention, okay, Walz had showed me that was a smart pick. But again, the lack of using him since then makes me a little nervous. Am I just being
a debate? I think that we'll know more by the time. Well, probably not by the time we meet next Wednesday, but it'll be interesting to see if they really turn on the jets with him afterwards. So, and again, I just think it's worth bearing to mentioning. Tim Walz and Kamala Harris have seen huge upticks in their favorability. JD's favorability is in the trash. So it's not a unadulterated good to do more media. I agree with Sarah. I think that they should both do more. But there's strategy. There's also a strategy for a certain element of caution. If Kamala's going out and start doing a bunch of interviews where you have this
poll numbers on JD. Did you see the Harvard Youth Poll favorability numbers on JD?
Yeah,
I thought it was bad, but I didn't actually see the numbers. What was it?
Okay, so just guess his favorable number, not his net.
It's 13 or 18, isn't it?
18 to 29-year-olds.
18 to 29-year-olds, yeah.
What was it?
18.
Yeah, 18. Yeah.
I went and looked. Gallup did a fave on Vladimir Putin last year. And so this is like, last year, we're still in the hot and heavy, Ukraine war. And Putin, among Americans, polled at 5% favorable. Oh. And so J.D. Vance, he's got Putin beat by 13 points on his fave number.
What a spread.
It's a good spread.
Good Lord. All right, Sarah, do you have a message for us?
I do. We got to pay some bills, guys. If the beginning of fall has you feeling farmer's market vibes, look no further than Green Chef, the first certified organic meal kit company. Bring the flavors of the farmer's market to you with fresh, seasonal, organic produce in every box, plus premium proteins like organic eggs, sustainably sourced seafood, and antibiotic and hormone-free chicken. All these get delivered right to your door, plus you don't have to guess what to make with your farm fresh items. With Green Chef's easy-to-follow recipes and pre-measured and prepped ingredients, you'll be serving up a restaurant-worthy meal in no time. Don't let the back-to-school season set back your nutrition. Green Chef is making it easy to stick to your healthy eating habits with a new, more flexible menu featuring over 35 customizable recipe options every week. New options include doubling your portion of protein or veggies or swapping to a plant-based protein like organic tofu or tempeh. Are you dairy-free, gluten-free, vegetarian, or vegan? Green Chef has over 15 recipes every week to support those lifestyles and more. You'll also find over 15 weekly recipes that are ready in 25 minutes or less, so you'll have the power to tailor the menu to your needs, satisfying and nourishing everyone in your family in just about 30 minutes. All told, Green Chef has over 80 weekly menu and market options to satisfy every taste bud. Quality whole foods with limited processed ingredients and organic farm fresh produce in every box make Green Chef the #1 meal kit for clean eating. And did you know Green Chef is owned by another one of our sponsors, HelloFresh? So now you can switch between the two and have a wider array of meal plans to choose from. I don't know about you guys. We all got kids. It's back to school time. And that means we are crunched after work to get dinner on the table. So I have been using my Green Chef and HelloFresh to make sure that, I'm helping. I'm helping get our children fed.
You're contributing.
I am.
That's nice. That's nice.
I was doing that last night while we were texting. So the three of us were texting last night, and while I was sitting at the kitchen island doing my Green Chef cooking, and that's how easy it is. I was able to do work,
text
and do a
cook.
meal at the same time.
It's brutal.
Yeah, we were texting. We do talk to each other, not just on this show.
Very rarely.
Yeah, all of us have to cook dinner. So thanks to Green Chef and to HelloFresh for making it so easy. Go to greenchef.com/nextlevelclass for 50% off your first box plus 50 free credits with ClassPass. That's code nextlevelclass at greenchef.com/nextlevelclass to get 50% off your first box plus 50 free ClassPass credits.
And a note for you, Sarah. Reps, if people have any doubts that reps matter, reps are showing for you. Your ad reads are improving significantly from the beginning. See, it's all about getting that batting practice in.
Thanks, man.
Of course.
All right. So the New York Times has some hopium today from Nate Cohn. Cohn? I don't know. From the New York Times, Nate.
Like David Cohn.
Right. Everyone just calls him the New York Times, Nate. About how maybe the Republican Electoral College advantage is disappearing. And Sarah, you sent this to me with your sort of like, rah, rah, go team this morning. And I went and read it and I thought, this is not especially convincing. Do you want to make the case for people?
No, I want to hear your case for why it's not convincing first.
Well, hold on. Let's just lay out what the case is really quickly, which is, and it is JVL and I've been having this argument. The reason I sent it to JVL, and then it was funny when Tim sent it to both of us later, is because this is a debate about whether or not in this particular election, the national polling needs to be like, there's this sort of rule of thumb that national polling, in order for the Democrat to win, because of the advantage that you get in the Electoral College, that Republicans get in the Electoral College, means that Democrats need to win by at least 3 points, really closer to 4, right? To win the swings. Cohn is arguing, as I have been arguing, that may be less true now, in part because, in my opinion, Trump is running up the numbers in friendly places. Kamala and Joe Biden ran up their numbers in their friendly places, right? That the states are becoming more polarized. And at the end of the day, you're fighting over 4 to 6 states. And that it really, even if the national polling is a little bit flat because Trump is doing better, in these general elections, in the places where he is especially strong, right, especially red states, but he is still unable to convince swing voters in places like Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Nebraska too, Arizona, whatever, that is how you get, really, even if the national polling is only a point or two, she can still eke it out in the swing states.
I want to add one note to that. Trump is running up his number in red states, but actually the opposite is not true. Kamala is not running up her number in
You're
blue
right.
states.
That is part of his argument.
So California and then New York in particular, if you look at working class. Yeah.
Right. No, Nate's point is actually that Trump is running up his numbers in states he can't win. So that he's all of a sudden performing much better in New York and California where he's not going to flip.
Yeah.
And so this is what is moving the national poll. And I look at it, the other thing I don't like about this analysis is a lot of it rests on maybe the world will be more like 2022 than it was like 2020. And I just believe that is a misreading of the electorates, because the reason 2022 is different is because it was an off-year electorate, and Democrats are now better at off-year electorates because they have swapped out less reliable voters for more reliable voters. I see no reason to believe that 2024 will be closer to 2022 than to 2020. Does that make sense? If you see
I
what I'm
agree
saying?
with that, but I still think that there's been there's been a gradual shift still that was started before 2020 that has continued through 2024, that has especially been exacerbated with Kamala, where you see the Democrats improving with white women in particular, and Trump, we'll see by how much, but like improving among Hispanic men, I think is pretty clear at this point, like almost certainly.
Yeah.
Black men, TBD. Like we think so, but we'll know more. I don't think we'll really know till election day or till a month after election day. But that's like a bad electoral college trade for him, right? Like it just is. And
Yes, this is right.
and so by how much? By 1 point or by 2 points? You know what I mean? Like does it improve it? That means that, there's, instead of a 4-point delta between the swing state and the tipping point state and the national polls, it's a 3-point, or is it a 2-point? It's not huge, but I also think it's not nothing. And we're seeing that trajectory kind of move in the Democrats' favor for the first time in a while. And I think that it might keep moving in the Democrats' direction for a little while yet. Like I don't think it's crazy to think that 2028 it could be even closer to even, Stephen.
And I just this point about women in the swing states, but more importantly, white people. So my big concern when Joe Biden dropped out was like, would Kamala continue to perform in these industrial Midwest states with white people at the same level that Biden was, especially older white voters? Like, I was just like, I don't know. She continues to not do as well with Black and Hispanic men as the numbers Joe Biden hit in 2020. But Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin simply have fewer of those voters than North Carolina, Georgia, and Arizona. And so if she holds her numbers with white people, and she's running it up with white women in particular, including non-college white women, but whether it's because of abortion or because J.D. Vance and Donald Trump literally aren't fighting for their votes and they are repelling these people. But here's the other thing about women voters. And one of the reasons that women get talked about every election as some kind of a commodity is that, and for some reason people forget to sort of mention this often, women vote at a higher rate than men. They just do. Like they tend to be a higher share of the voting population. And so when you're running up the numbers with women, right, you are also then picking up the fact that they turn out at a higher rate. And one of the things that one of the things I'm interested to see about the election, but I can't be sure about it all. But I feel like Donald Trump will always have an enormous amount of enthusiasm from his sort of working class base of male voters. Do you want to count on, though, the fact that he's doing slightly better with younger voters or younger men? Like, would you want to rest your campaign on the turnout efforts of those folks?
No.
Like these low propensity types. Like, I wonder if the enthusiasm for Trump at 78 remains like it was the last two times.
No, you wouldn't want to rest on it.
That's the $64,000 question.
Yeah, we did this last week. Like, no, you wouldn't want to rest on it. I'd rather be Kamala.
Oh, I already
Kamala's
said this. I don't know
better.
where I say at any given place.
But like the pool, it just still remains that the biggest pool of voters, if you divide everybody by gender and college degree and race, and so everybody gets all three of those characteristics. The pool that's the biggest is non-college whites. And so I guess technically it's non-college white women, slightly over non-college white men. But like non-college white men is the second biggest category. And so that's a good category. Like that's it's a big pool to swim in of non-voters, I guess, is the thing that worries me. But I do agree with you that I'd rather have the Kamala coalition.
All right. McKay Coppins has a piece out in the Atlantic about Mitt Romney in retirement.
So good.
And I don't know. I got a very melancholy feeling reading this. What did you, Sarah, what was your sense? Because in it, Romney is basically despairing for America and is concerned about Trump's intentions for retribution. And at one point, he says, I'll be fine. I don't drink. I've never had an affair. I mean, what are they going to do?
He does start to worry about Alzheimer's. He's like he's looking into the types of behaviors that lead to Alzheimer's, and he's like drinking is one of them, but stress is another one. So he's a little worried about Alzheimer's for himself. That was added to the melancholy.
Yeah.
When you start Googling what traits lead to Alzheimer's at a higher rate, you're not in the best place.
And McKay says to him, well, what about your sons? And Romney is like, well, I hope that they've dotted their I's and crossed their T's. But I have 25 grandkids. This is, I can't protect. And he says, I can't protect all of us. And I just thought, what a fucking country we live in that Mitt Romney has to say out loud, well, shit, I hope the guy who says he wants to become president and be a dictator and who's going to seek retribution on his political enemies, I hope he's kidding because I can't protect my entire family. And yet here we are.
So sometimes my kid does this thing where he bends his head down and turns his body into a battering ram, right? So he like headbutts me right in the stomach. And it's loving in some ways because it's this thing like he sort of wants to be hugged into, I want to tell you that this is what I want to do to Mitt Romney right now. I love Mitt Romney, but I want to bow my head and I want to run straight into him and just knock him over and say, I love you, man, but how is it possible that you are going to opine in this piece about this guy targeting your family, you, your grandkids, and your immediate result is to just bemoan the situation instead of being, I'm going to affirmatively endorse the alternative.
I didn't want to be the one to say it.
We had a discussion. We do Mitt first? We should have done Mitt first. Had I known Sarah had the battering ram bit ready, I would have. And sure, we led with that. Can I just
because
say
he does say that. If I just set the table for you, Tim, McKay Coppins asks him, you and Biden have grown close over the last few years. Are you going to endorse him? And Romney's like, geez, I just don't know. I mean, it's so hard because if I endorse him, does that mean I endorse his border policy and, and every one of his policies? Does that mean that I endorse the student debt relief thing? And I just, it's a pickle.
Yeah, I want to go back to that. I want to say my daughter does she likes to squish me. She likes to just squish my belly. That's her version of it. And I kind of want to squish Mitt Romney's belly now that you mention it.
Right.
I just want to squish his belly a little bit and just be like, Mitt, I love you, but I want to read the exact quote you just read because I'd already pulled it up. Biden's policies, let me put it in here. Biden's policies drive me crazy. And one of the reasons I think there are people like me who shrink at the idea of endorsing Biden is, does that mean I endorse his border policies? or do I endorse giving trillions of dollars to college students to pay their debt? Okay. So I want to cover that. There are a couple things I want to cover there. Number one, Mitt Romney, Pierre Delecto. We knew that you followed the Bulwark once. I don't know if you're a TNL reader, but if you're listening right now, no. You do not need to endorse Kamala Harris's border policies or giving trillions of dollars to college students to pay their debt to endorse her for president. Like, why is this so hard? Like, for hundreds of years, it's just something about the fact when it's the other party, people have this mental block. Throughout my entire life, politicians and myself and everyone on this podcast and everybody listening to this podcast have voted for people who had policies they didn't agree with. Me and Sarah, for starters, we're voting for Republicans. We're voting for people that were against gay marriage our whole life. By the way, if you're a Democrat, unless you're like 25, you were voting for candidates that oppose gay marriage your entire life. So anyone listening to this podcast who is for gay marriage in the year 2008 or before voted for a candidate that they disagreed with on an issue of fundamental importance to me and to Sarah and to many others, right? So, like, that's just one example. I could do 1,000 examples. So, like, no. And not only that, as I've said millions of times, Mitt Romney, your endorsement of Kamala Harris would be stronger if it was paired with the fact that, you know, I don't really agree with her on her border policies as much, and I don't agree with her on student loans, because the people like Mitt Romney that are out there in Wisconsin making the same calculation would hear that and be like, oh, okay, that's interesting. All right, this is not someone with Trump derangement syndrome or that has become a full lib or is a socialist progressive now. It's someone who, like me, has concerns about policies but can make a judgment call. So, like, so just to answer his question to McKay, no, he does not have to do that. Then there's just the other part about how the policies drive him crazy. And it's just kind of like, really? How crazy?
The Ukraine policy?
Yeah, and
Senator,
how crazy?
Is that what drives you crazy? Or is it the infrastructure spending or the CHIPS Act? Because you voted for a whole bunch of these bills.
Yeah. I disagree with him. I strongly disagree with him is one thing. But like, that's just, I just want to say, I don't believe you. I don't believe you that they drive you crazy. It feels like it's still a put
some
on
of them,
that he
sure,
can't get over. Sure.
But on a whole bunch of them.
Again,
the
I mean the
college loan
specific
stuff drives
phrase,
me
drive
crazy.
him crazy, though. Drive him crazy? Like, he gets very upset? Like, he gets
Okay,
emotionally
but,
upset?
No, but that's the thing is, like, this is a bad policy.
Sure.
And it's annoying. And the way that liberals think about these things are annoying because it's like somebody does have to pay for these things. And also, every time you subsidize more of this stuff, you know what you do? You drive up the whatever. We're not going to have a whole thing about it. But, like, I also, it's funny when you say it, of course you can do it. We do it every day. Every day. And this is, at this point, Mitt Romney, also, guess what you also disagree with? Guess what also drives you crazy? A bunch of policies of your own party. These guys aren't Ronald Reagan's ghost anymore. They are cozying up to Putin. Does that drive you crazier than the student loan policy? Drives me crazier than the student loan policy. Could it be the tariffs? Are we talking about tax policies? Let's talk about the tariffs. Let's talk about the isolationism. Let's talk about dismantling the the post-World War II order in the world. I know you care about those things, my man. And so on the policy front with the libs, it's starting to be kind of a wash. And then you start to weigh
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you.
Can I just
yes,
throw one other
that
thing
is the point.
In particular, in the Mitt Romney case? In 2008, Mitt Romney ran in a primary against John McCain, where Mitt Romney said that John McCain was wrong on several policies, among them the border policies. Like one of the two things he mentions now. Because back then, John McCain his border policies were closer to really what Biden and Harris's border policies were back when that was, where the party was. So, like, he didn't then say, I cannot endorse John McCain in the general election. I'm just going to call it a wash because if I endorse him, I don't want to make it seem like I endorse every policy item. He didn't do that in 2008, and he didn't even think about doing that because it would have been an absurd thing to do, right? But it's just something about there's just like this mental block when it's not within your party.
So which leads me to my favorite topic, asymmetry. So Mitt Romney, who is, again, by the numbers, is at least 50-50 with Harris and Biden on policy matters, right? I mean, he says, the policies on the border drive him crazy. But then in the same thing, he laments that this bill that Biden was going to sign on the border got killed. Like, like Romney was with him on that border policy. Anyway, Joe Manchin also not going to endorse Kamala Harris. So again, you just see like the different, on the Republican side, you have all these Republicans who agree with the Democrats on at least half the stuff and really, really hate Donald Trump and believe he's dangerous, and they can't endorse Kamala Harris. And then you have Democrats who also can't endorse Kamala. I don't.
I thought you were going to bring up Mike McDonald, the Nebraska guy, we should have a good moment for you, Mike McDonald. I want to learn more about him, but I've been reading a little bit about him. And good man, it seems like he did the right thing to save us from this last-second Nebraska Electoral College shift. But I thought where JVL was going, the interesting thing about him is he used to be a Democrat.
Yeah.
He switched parties to Republican because he felt like the Democrats didn't welcome his conservative views on social issues and immigration. And it's just like, this has happened several times in the Trump years. Going the other direction, at the local level.
We don't have Republicans going deep.
Jeff Van Drew, there was the lady in North Carolina, this McDonald, Nebraska, where people have done the other direction. That is the most gobsmacking thing about the whole deal. I mean, good on you, Mike McDonald, but it's insane. It's crazy. There are no examples going the other way.
All right, so do you guys want to fight about internet gambling, or should we just call it a show because it's been long enough?
I think we can have a brief argument about internet gambling.
Are we arguing about it?
Me and JVL are. I think.
Oh,
I don't
great.
know what your position is.
You
Her
guys go,
position
and then
is pro-degenerate gambling.
I am pro-degenerate gambling, but I didn't read the triad about the robots.
Oh,
But,
come on! This week of all weeks, after the semaphore thing, you didn't read the triad.
Did the graphic about how semaphore and Sarah both don't read the triad? What really just made my week. I mean, I was tickled by that graphic.
Made one of our weeks.
I don't know. I mean, it was funny because it gets under JVL's skin, though. Like, I mean, it wasn't. And the article was about YouTube. I mean, it was about YouTube. It wasn't about the newsletters. It also didn't mention Press Pass or McAville or whatever. But
mentioned Mark Caputo. Mentioned Sam Stein. Mentioned Barry Rubin. Mentioned Bill.
That's true. Mentioned
Barry Weiss. Mentioned Substack.
No.
Well, I thought otherwise it was a pretty good piece. You can't touch all the
what?
bases.
Look, really, it's all about as long as the brand is getting over, that's all I care about. I'm a team player.
All the bases. Anywho, in the triad that neither Semaphore nor Ben Smith nor Max Tanny nor Sarah Long will read, JVL wrote, I guess, about how internet gambling and sports gambling is bad. Do you want to give a 2-sentence summary, JVL, for me to rebut?
So internet gambling and sports gambling are basically run by robots at this point, and any normal person dipping into play is getting hosed. And it is sophisticated and predatory because, like, one of the things they're trying to do is tune the robots to extract people's money at a rate that is slow enough to keep them playing. Because they've noticed, like, for instance, in poker, the bots were just making people go bankrupt so fast that people got angry and didn't want to keep playing. So it's like tuning a slot machine. And the apps are very good at seeing what your patterns are and trying to entice you to come back if you've been away too long. And we are also now getting a bunch of sociological data showing that this stuff is having bad outcomes, especially for men under the age of 30 and 40, increasing risk of bankruptcies, increasing domestic violence rates. And my view is that we ought to put a stop to all this stuff right the fuck now. And if people want to go to a casino and hand cash into a window to bet on sports games or something, that is great. Because the thing is, you can leave a casino and what you're betting is cash. So you actually have to have it on hand. Having the casino be in your pocket at all times and having it run on a credit card, when we have these addictive machines now, which we are only barely starting to understand the consequences of. And in fact, we're now having moves to like ban them from schools and try to keep kids off of them. It's a bad thing. And what it's doing is it's not productive economic activity. It is predatory behavior, and it's a wealth transfer from the poor people who can least afford to do it to big corporations which own the platforms and wealthy, high-skill computer people in both the U.S. and abroad. Not to mention there's a terrorism aspect to all of this. So we had to shut it all down.
Well, I like that this has revealed the coming fissure between nanny state school marm never Trumpism and libertarian opportunity economy and freedom never Trumpism. But look, there are a lot of bad things out there. There's a lot of things out there that people spend their money on that they shouldn't. Mike Bloomberg went to bad big gulps. Big gulps aren't healthy. People shouldn't drink big gulps. You shouldn't use your money on that. People probably shouldn't be spending their money, including me, on like food delivery products. I don't know, unless you want to advertise with us later, DoorDash. Hey. That all the fees that are being put into that, like a lot of money is being wasted out there by various products. There's tons of things that people piss money away on. Like people piss money away on stuff all the time. And in a free country, should I not be allowed to piss my money away in gambling on the sports people on my TV screen? Should I not be able to bet on the WNBA playoffs while I'm on my couch? Should I not catch a whim and think I want to bet on the Indiana Fever tonight and I want to hit Caitlin Clark's points, rebounds, and assists over? And I want to sit there with my daughter and have a little action on the game. So I'm not just because I don't really have an emotional connection between the Connecticut Sun and the Indiana Fever. What's wrong with that? That's America.
You can do all of that in person at your local Native American casino. I don't want to do it at the local
casino. I want to do it on my couch.
Look,
why am I not allowed to do that?
We place restrictions on things.
I'm sorry.
We do that.
Do you think that we
don't? To buy tobacco, you have to be over the age of 18, right? To
Sure,
buy
I
alcohol.
I don't think we should have
21.
14-year-olds sports gambling online. I do.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure you have to be over 18 to sports gamble. But no, I had a genuine question. I'm deciding how I feel about this in real time. Do you think that online porn should be banned? You talk about something that's having a deleterious effect on men.
Andrew Eggers,
yes. I don't think so, because Andrew Eggers a yes on this. I don't think so, but I am all of the consent stuff around online porn, I think is really bad and needs to be regulated in like a pretty heavy-handed way, because there's a lot of like people winding up in porn who don't consent to it. Like that's a big problem. I mean, there is like an economic activity aspect here in which, again, it's just a wealth transfer, and it's being done in almost all cases under at least misleading, if not like nearly fraudulent terms.
But do you think porn is having an adverse effect on our culture? Like just the total availability of it?
Probably. I don't know.
Okay.
Probably.
But then I guess what's the difference? Is it just about the money? Yeah, like why should online porn in its ubiquity and in its
Well, where's the wealth transfer?
If we're going to shut down DraftKings, why shouldn't we shut down OnlyFans? I guess is the question.
So your problem is not the deleterious effects on society. It is who's making money off of this. Is that right?
Yeah, and also like the pretenses. I mean, because again, it is the intermingling of the smartphone with it. I'm not saying ban gambling, right? You want to go and place the same bet at a sports book that you can walk into and then walk out of. That's fine. I just think we need some friction, right? When you have vice behaviors, you need some friction in order to keep those things from having really bad effects.
What's the friction around online porn?
Always a deal maker. We could talk about it. Like, what about how you just have to the apps? You have to directly deposit cash into them. You can only bet cash. Could we do that rule? Is that an enforceable law? I would be for that. I actually don't know what's on the table as far as enforceable things.
Enforceable. I don't know how that would be enforceable. I'd have to think it through.
So I tend to be in these situations. I sort of default to education. Like what's interesting to me about what JVL is talking about is the way that the bots are tuned. It's a question of like, well, what do we regulate as a society? And like what level of harm do we tolerate in order to have the freedoms? Like that's in tension all the time. right?
This is a freedom which didn't exist until 4 years ago when the Roberts Court passed down a decision invalidating a law on gambling. I mean, this is, again, like
it's one
everybody
that I've
was
grown
doing
very
just
fond
fine.
of in 4 years, and one that I would like
Everybody
to keep.
was doing just fine by betting only in the old traditional way. And, we have a Bulwark reader who I'm buddies with who is a high-level poker player. You guys both know who I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
And he emailed me last night, and he was like, "Oh no, it's even worse than you think." He said, he said he will not touch online poker tournaments because it's just pure cheat. I mean, cheating isn't really the right word because what it is
I'm
is
for this.
it's a bunch of guys in Russia who are
This
running
is where
bot
I was saying
farms.
education about why this is not like real
I'm
gambling.
sorry, Sarah. The people we're talking about reaching. I mean, we're talking about Trump voters. We're talking about trying to save Trump voters from going
That is not
bankrupt.
true. There are plenty of Kamala
men.
voters in my life who are under 40 men that are irresponsibly gambling online. So the irresponsible online gambling is happening across the ideological spectrum. I will say though, you have me on the bots thing. The poker thing, there should be rules, and like if you're sitting at a poker table, like there should be human verification that if you think that you're in a, like, it's one thing if you want to go online and play online blackjack, which is about the stupidest thing you could possibly fucking do, then you're just too stupid to have your money, I guess. But you people should not be fooled. They should not think that there's in an online poker tournament with Joe down the block, and they're actually in an online poker tournament with an AI bot. Like that should be illegal.
Yeah, well,
So I'm with you on
and
that.
that's what all sports betting is too. All sports betting is you're
Sports
betting on
you're
sports.
gambling on the players on the field. There's no bots.
Yeah,
I'm making a bet.
those lines are all being driven by guys.
I understand the
with
lines
giant
are being driven by
bots.
algorithms and stuff, but like, okay, that's different than betting.
The only
against a
people
non-
making money are the people who do it for a living.
Of course, yeah, of course. No, that's true. I asked Nate Silver about this on the end of the pod. I brought this up and I was like, hey, so I enjoy doing this.
See, I'm a village guy. You're a river guy.
I am.
Right?
He spent a year doing NBA gambling where he just focused on it. And I was like, I love NBA gambling. So I was like, did you learn anything? Are there any tips? Are there any advantages? Is there anything I can do to win? And his answer was basically, you have no chance and you're just gambling for fun. And so you should only gamble fun money because it's like, unless you are a total degenerate, and not in the Sarah way, but like an obsessive degenerate,
So
like
this
there's
is-
no way to
can
make money.
This is ultimately my. I hate libertarians. I'm sorry. That's not
I'm
right.
a liberalitarian.
The reason I have a strong dislike and distrust of libertarians is that their attitude is basically people who are born with the social and economic capital to withstand mistakes should be allowed to make the mistakes if those mistakes are fun for them. Without understanding that
I'm
like
feeling
half
rad right
of the
now.
world is not born with the social and economic capital to survive those mistakes. And for half the world, those mistakes like mark you for life. And to me, libertarianism is this incredibly privileged view that like, yeah, sure. I'm able to get away with it. If I get arrested, it'll be fine. I'll still get into a good college. And that's not the way the world works.
We can
for a lot
leave
of
it there.
people.
Yeah, I've been read for filth. I get it. Yeah, that's fine. That's fair criticism. But I've already made a lot of life changes, so I'm sticking with this for now. Maybe you can win me over. I'm gonna keep trying to improve as the decades go on.
Good show. Long show. Guys, we'll see you next week after the debate.
Peace.
Bye.